Okay, here we go. At the end of first turn, you can see that the Japanese failed to push the stupid gun. And I think, I committed 2 squads to that and a leader. I'm not going to continue to try to push it. I really find that the use of this gun, well, I suppose it could be used to back up against those guys. I'll have the crew sit back there and try to push it. Maybe a squad, but I'm not going to commit a leader to it anymore. Now, over here, what happened is I was going to set up a bonsai, so what I did, and this is a trick you should all remember to do, one of the ways to stop bonsais is if there's some dummies here, which I had sitting something like this, and remove the dummies so he doesn't have anything that he can charge. Now, of course, he knows where 5 of the dummies were. He knows that the rest of the stuff is real. But so what? That he being me, of course, but I'm talking about your opponent in the future. So that's the situation. Did force the MG stack to pull back. It wasn't really worth sticking around for that. Using a left hand to move counters is never a good idea. So the roadblock is now manned by a 447 that's concealed. Got a mortar ready to smoke that hex or white phosphorus it. And trying to make a push through here. Now all I've got here is a 436 guarding that. But the thing about conscripts that are allied is, yeah, it's a 436, but it still does an 8 firepower attack. And you really can't afford to run straight at it. I mean, it's simply just too dangerous to do. So, can approach it from the side, but as you can see, that's a pretty well-defended hex right there. So, it's suicidal. One of the things the Japanese might want to do here is a bonsai charge, but, you don't want to take too many step losses into the teeth of a defense. Bonsai charge that way. There's a lot of guys there. Bonsai charge this way. This guy can probably conceal, I'm not sure. But since all these buildings are not huts, you don't want to take 16 minus ones or, triple point blank fire, 24 flats. It's a little bit deadly to bonsai without a real reason. So, probably no bonsai happening. It'll be turn 2, and we'll see what happens next. All right, that's the report at the moment. Okay, well, after turn 2, folks, I've abandoned the Japanese gun. It's not going to be pushed anywhere. I moved the crew up here to man the mortar. The crew's right there where that 237 is. Okay. The British have pulled back. They've had to voluntarily break a couple units. The Japanese have taken some losses. Here's the Grindel bin. But so have the British now. And in fact, they lost their key position over here due to encirclement. Should have pulled back. They were able to encircle here and here, and they broke them. And so that caused those prisoners to be taken. You see that stack of prisoners there. That means I have 8 VP of British at the moment, plus the 3 buildings. That's 11. The British have 3 Japanese, plus all of these other buildings here. So they're still well ahead. I was able to get a blaze going here, but now the British have nothing really to stop them, and they're going to lose another prisoner right there, probably. So things are a little bit dire. I'm not so sure that I got this fire started fast enough to stop the Japanese since I lost my 8-1 position, and they can flank through there. Should be an interesting decision. It'll be Japanese turn 3. So I would say this is turning into where I was a little bit concerned the Japanese, if they couldn't push their gun, they weren't going to have a chance really well, but the British aren't shooting that great. There's a couple of striped Japanese, and actually the Japanese lost a close combat in this Woods hex right here, that 447, and took out a Japanese squad in close combat. That was even a hand-to-hand close combat. So the Japanese were a bit dismayed with that, but then on the subsequent Allied turn, they encircled the machine gun position. So now they're in a much stronger position. We also know where the carriers really are, knowing that this is a fake carrier. So if the it should be interesting now to see what happens. We'll keep going. Thank you for watching this so far. I'm doing this turn by turn, so I'm not exactly how many turns I'll be putting together. Probably, I want to make 2 more videos at the most, so probably at the end of turn 4, I'll put this up. 2 more turns for that. Cheers. Okay, here we are, slicing the throat. AP85 at the end of 3-player turns. You see how this brush just flames up so quickly for the British, so that whole area is probably sealed off now. They probably won't be able to get the rest of this to go. Even palm trees and jungle in the middle of the dry heat don't go very quickly, especially downhill. There is a mild breeze that sprung up, though, so that could carry some coals across the road if there's a gust. Interesting. So, at the moment, things are going according to plan over here for the British. Up here, not so well. They've taken a lot of hits and they're too far forward. It looks like it was too far forward now, their defense. And there's been a lot of prisoners taken, 6 factors worth of prisoners, CVP versus prisoners. And they've lost their medium machine gun position to the Japanese. And now they're stuck in these front rows over here facing a superior Japanese force that will also cut off the road from them by moving the medium this way. So it's looking pretty grim. I would say at the moment the Japanese have the advantage. They still have 4-player turns to penetrate the village. Probably take all of these at this point in time. Oh, I meant those. At this point in time, they have a 10 CVP lead over the British in terms of actual infantry. But of course, the British have all of these buildings back here. So we'll have to do an analysis pretty soon on if the Japanese take these 6 buildings here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Actually, they've got those. That's 10, 11. They'll be very close to being ahead. So I would say at this stage, the Japanese have the lead in or let's say the initiative or the edge, however you want to call it. I did move the carriers back here. They can dismount and abandon and take those machine guns with them. Keep these vehicles out of harm's way as much as possible at this point so that those extra CVP are not added to the list. So that's the situation at the beginning of turn 4. Okay, after turn 4, here's the situation. It's evident that the forward defense of the British was a bad idea. In fact, I've calculated the current score based upon the Japanese taking all of these buildings, which they will get. They'll have 34 points, including all the prisoners, to 32 points for the British. So at the moment, all other things being equal, no snipers taking out and releasing prisoners and things like that, the Japanese could win at the end of next player turn. But it's a little bit premature to make that conclusion. It's going to be turn 5. The Japanese still have 3 player turns, though, to penetrate even more of these buildings. And for every building taken, it's actually worth 2 because you get plus 1 point, but it's minus 1 point for the other side. I've taken the carriers over here as the British and abandoned them, so that's a little bit of extra firepower here that I can put together. The strategy of burning up this brush area, which I think is part of the game's design. I really hate it when they design kindling in, but I think it's a necessary thing. All the wind is helping possibly spread it into the jungle on K16 or in K19. L19 might also flame up, but the other areas won't. Oh, L15 I think is possibly prone as well with the wind the way it is. So it might spread into that forest there, but it probably won't spread too fast. So that's a jungle forest. So, yeah, that's the situation. There's just so many prisoners taken by the Japanese. These guys disrupt. The 436s will disrupt. That's what happened to one of them. The other ones got cut off from an ability to route. Although, yeah, that might be a mistake. I might need to correct that because that guy could have routed through the dispersed smoke that I forgot to smear. So let me put that guy back on. That'll give a little bit more hope for these guys, but basically this prisoner here shouldn't have been taken prisoner because he could have routed through here. The medium machine gun would not have been able to interdict through the smoke. So I'll fix that. But I'd say it's looking kind of grim for the British and their forward defense plan. And as usual, my defense plans seem to have some inherent flaws that I just don't pick up. Quite interesting, really, to see if I can ever figure this out. All right, so that's the end of as I said, turn 4, it'll be the start of turn 5. Okay, so here we are in the wee hours. And it's the beginning of turn 6. It's almost over here. The score's 37 for the Japanese, 32 for the British. The British had a bit of luck here and got a hero and rallied a guy, but they're on their last legs, really. It's not going to be long before the Japanese either win this or have some really bad luck and lose it. So we'll play it out. But as you can see, the Japanese are pressing forward in this direction. They've already got 37 points of prisoners and everything else. And there's really no opportunity for counterattack as far as the British have. They just don't have any reserves to even try to spare to push back and get some buildings or casualty points. But a sniper could come in, maybe free up some prisoners who try to melee and get their escape going. So it's not quite over, but the British are going to need some luck. So let's try and see what happens. So that's it. After the end of the Japanese turn 6, score is 45 to 32. There's really no chance in creation here that the British could win this. They've surrounded everything to make sure that it's immune to sniper attacks, really. So none of the prisoners will be able to free themselves up, barring multiple sniper attacks versus step reductions. There's a possibility of a short counterattack over here in the center, but it's not going to be enough with 2 squads here, 2.5, 3 squads on 3 Japanese squads. These guys are also disrupted, so they'll surrender as well, or no quarter will be declared at that point. So it's really going to be at least 46 to 32. So, yeah. mistake here made. We'll do an analysis, but I believe it's because the British set up too far forward and they were able to lose too many prisoners. I think the Japanese got quite lucky on breaking and ELRing the 436s or ELRing the 447s and then getting them again as 436s disrupted. They have no place to run because this is January of 42 and the no quarters not in effect yet with the Japanese at this stage of the game. Not until June is that true. So, yeah, certainly proved to myself that the Japanese can win this. It really looks lopsided at the beginning of it, but very quickly the Japanese can come in and chew them up. So that's the end of this one. Go ahead and post this. Thanks for watching all of these. Have a good one. Bye. Okay, hi there. So it's Mark here with some concluding remarks about this failure analysis. It was a useful exercise for me to go back 10 years and look at AP85 slicing the throat. And I think this can happen if you're a little bit too careful as the attacker. You need to press forward, and especially more and more these modern scenarios are less than 7 turns. A lot of them, this was a 7-turn scenario, and you had a long way to go to get all the buildings as the Japanese. You really cannot afford to be a little bit too careful. So force preservation is important, but at the same time, source meeting the objectives. So you can't be too afraid. You can't be too afraid to go forward. So that was the first lesson. Or reminder, really. Normally I'm quite aggressive, so I think I was just a little bit more hesitant than usual, having come back into the hobby than jumping right into a tournament. All right, the second thing I learned was that in this particular scenario, a forward defense for the British did not work. I think I was trying to emulate what I remembered from my opponent back in the day, and I remember him putting some stuff up front to contest me. Perhaps it wasn't as far forward as I put it, but I figured in for a penny and for a pound, let's try to stop the Japanese, and that did not work. They took some casualties initially, but when these British break with an ELR of 2, especially if some of them are conscripts, that doesn't give a lot of margin for error, and broken conscripts become disrupted, and the Japanese are not prevented from taking prisoners. In this particular scenario, it's early 1942. So that's exactly why I believe the British lost this. Too aggressive on the defense, and when I lost it back in the day, it was too non-aggressive on the attack. So really good scenario, though. Really enjoyed it. Some fun things happened near the end. The British generated that hero just near the end there that gave them a possible chance of pushing back the Japanese at the critical point. There was always the threat near the end until the very end of a sniper breaking a critical guard, and then the prisoners rising up and fighting them and, securing themselves some freedom. And by doing so, that's an interesting point. I guess I'd have to check and see what happens. The casualties they originally were, I think that's where you get the units from. They don't stay dead. They come back out of the casualties bin. So it would be in a total reversal. And there were some sniper attempts that came close. Some sniper activations that came close, but wasn't enough. So I'll do this again. I think this is really useful for myself, and some of the people who saw the first video on this did indicate that they would like to see some more of these again. So all that being said, thanks for watching. Appreciate this. Like and subscribe, and I will see